100%, we as chiropractors can be at the forefront, but we have to be able to offer that. And again, getting back to the original premise here, that's way more than just a spinal adjustment.
Welcome back to ChiroRex, where we talk business growth for, well, chiropractors. I'm your host, Corey Hibben, and on today's episode, I had Dr. David Lipman, who is out of Boca Raton, Florida. David has been in practice for over 30 years, and he runs the Physical Evidence Biooptimization Center, a fully cash-based practice built around the belief that the adjustment is just one piece of the puzzle. In this episode, we get into why he walked away from insurance, how he uses things like the Superhuman Protocol to create a membership-based model, how he's using AI to run his front desk and to follow up with leads, and why he believes that chiropractors are actually the best positioned doctors to be driving the biohacking movement. Whether you're thinking about building a cash-based model, adding new services, or just trying to figure out what's next for your practice, this episode's for you. Let's dive in. Dr. David, welcome to the show, my man. How are we doing?
Outstanding, superhuman, and getting younger every day, Corey. Nice to see you, buddy. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, I love that. I love that expression. I'm sure you use that a lot, and I'm sure people resonate with that a lot. But
yeah, it's part of the brand.
Yeah, that's important. Live the brand. So I wanna bring up something that I think can just kind of kick things off, and maybe might even be controversial for a few chiropractors. But I've heard you say that spinal adjustments alone isn't enough to enhance the body's health. And that's kind of a bold statement for the chiropractic industry. And I'm sure you have some reasons behind that, but I'd love for you to kind of maybe unpack that expression and then also tell us a little bit about who you are, what physical evidence looks like today. And give us a snapshot.
Yeah, great. Thanks. It's a great question. And it's really foundational for, how I started as a chiropractor and even before that. And just to kind of go back quickly and kind of bring it forward to talk about the evolution. When I was 10 years old, I was introduced to the concept by a neighbor that somehow working out, exercise, conditioning could make your body stronger, perform better, and that what you chose to eat would also either support that process or wouldn't. And so at 10 years old, I found myself working out on a daily basis, mostly body weight stuff, calisthenics, but it was also martial arts based. So I was punching and kicking a heavy bag, learning how to to fight and also just be conditioned like from that standpoint, almost like mixed martial arts, but it was working out. And, this 1971, nobody was working out, as a general thing back then. It was before the fitness revolution. But the concept that I can do something on a regular basis to enhance my body and how I ate was going to affect that really resonated with me. So when I was 15, I had a motorcycle injury and I broke my neck in two places, and I kind of hid the injury because I wasn't supposed to be on a motorcycle. I was afraid more of my dad get in trouble with him than what I was dealing with. Fortunately, I didn't get paralyzed, obviously, but I crushed two vertebrae. And so by the time I was 19, I was really having a hard time. And I was working a summer job in a fitness center, and I met this young chiropractic student. Big guy. He looked like, Clark Kent, and he looked like he was ready to just open up his shirt and have the big S there, big set of hands. But anyway, he prevailed upon me to come into the clinic and taking care of chiropractically. I didn't even know what a chiropractor was. My friends didn't use them. My folks didn't use them. I never even heard of it. But he took me in. He took an X-ray of my spine. He showed me how I had broken my neck, when I was 15 from that motorcycle injury. And then he gave me my adjustment. And it was like everything, just like the whole heavens opened up. It was like one of those, moments, because I was supposed to go into a family business that was multi-generational. And this took me in a whole different direction. And I think the reason really what that was so compelling is that the doctor of chiropractic wasn't someone that was going to do surgery, wasn't someone that was going to give you pills. He was somehow going to help your body heal itself and be able to tap into that resource of the body's own, healing, regenerative powers. And that really resonated with me because, again, when I was 10, I was told that there were things I can do to my body to improve it and make it good. So the body itself was just such an amazing thing to me. And, starting at 10 years old, by the time I was 16 and 17, I was big, I had development and I was strong and I was able to run fast and, do like 42 pull-ups and, crazy stuff. So the idea that a doctor, or I could be a doctor like that, really kind of turned me on. And so going to school, of course, it points out how the idea of nerve interference, because of the way the spine and the nervous system are so closely physically related and then functionally related, that it made sense that if this was one way to help the body function by removing that interference through spinal adjustments, then it would make sense that the body could do its own thing. So I took to it. I, obviously experienced it from a musculoskeletal standpoint, but I also found that I was thinking clearer because, I had some, even at 19, had some, not headaches per se, but a little brain foggy because I wasn't getting a good blood flow to my brain. So I saw the physical musculoskeletal improvements, but I also felt there were also other improvements. So I became a patient and then became a doctor some years later. But as time has gone on and I've learned more about biochemistry, physiology, and some of the other things that, have really come through the biohacking world, I've realized that I am the biohacking doctor. We as chiropractors are, because we really are the ones that are either removing interference or obstacles to our body's natural functioning, optimal functioning, or we're fortifying deficiencies. It's really both, of course. So now in 2026, we're able to really tap into understanding things at the cellular level, like mitochondrial function. So I've realized that I want to make a more complete biohacking practice, not just a spinal adjustment. So that's what I've done. I've done it over time. We have the superhuman protocol. We have molecular hydrogen. We do testing at the, again, the mitochondrial level, the biochemical level, to really give somebody a true blueprint of themselves and actionable steps that they can really give their body that chance to optimize function, healing, regeneration, performance, all that. So that's kind of the whole story of how I started, the foundation of it within me and my belief system and my lifestyle. And now I'm basically all the things that we offer here, I do. So all I'm doing here as a chiropractic physician now is sharing what I do as a chiropractor with all the things here with everybody that comes in. I'm not selling anything. I'm sharing my lifestyle. And I have a buddy that comes in once a week. We exchange adjustments because obviously that's still a big part of the wellness piece of keeping that body, moving, keeping that nerve interference down, improving circulation, and of course the musculoskeletal piece. So
Yeah.
that's in a nutshell how that all kind of transpired for me.
Yeah, I mean it makes sense, right? It's the evolution of the more you learn, the more your practice probably grows and develops as you do. And I'm curious as to a little bit more about what that model actually looks like from a business standpoint. So, like, I'm just thinking about the chiropractor who's listening or watching who maybe is still just doing adjustments. I'd be curious as to like what maybe we could teach them or talk to them about in regards to like why would it be a good idea to maybe look into diversifying, or how would they diversify, or maybe just give an example of kind of, well, how your practice is like integrated some of this other stuff to, continue to keep the lights on, I guess you could say.
Yeah. So I think there's a few things that have worked in my favor. We got whole body cryotherapy in the office in 2016. Nobody knew what it was. Nobody ever heard of it. And being in South Florida, the idea of being really cold for 3 minutes was not a big turnout to most people. However, many people that were coming in pain and had inflammation, I found that by putting them in there first, I was able to actually work on them better and help them get more pain-free and functional quicker because of that. So we also started 2 years later with a full red light bed in red light therapy. So red light and near infrared, dealing with inflammation and cellular, energy function at the cellular level. And so being able to, offer that as part of what we were doing here from a chiropractic standpoint, they were easy adjuncts and add-ons. And so now, since 2020, of course, I think that the upheaval from COVID, not only for having the pandemic, getting closed in and everything that was happening, I think a lot of people were like absorbing content because they had not much to do but sit there and watch podcasts. So now all of a sudden they're like, well, the medical community isn't really helping. They have this vaccine, we're sick, but they're not pushing us to boost our immune systems. They're not talking about those kinds of things. They're talking about vaccines and these other things, and they're kind of poo-pooing the things that really make the most sense. Let's fortify the body to fight this virus. And so more and more people are saying, you know what? I need to take my health into another direction. So I found that after COVID, especially since about 22 and 23, people are looking for some of these alternatives, and they're listening to biohacking podcasts, and they're learning about things like red light therapy and mitochondrial function, methylene blue. So all these things that are now much more integrated into the community and people's knowledge base, they're looking for it now. Whereas, prior to 2020, they really weren't. Like we had done some ads and, you know, nobody was really looking for red light therapy. Most people never heard of it, but now, you know, we get probably 5 leads a week of people coming in through a Facebook ad, because they've heard of red light therapy, the different benefits. You know, sometimes it's for skin, they're looking for it. Sometimes it's for pain. Sometimes it's for, you know, fatigue and trying to sleep better. So the revolution of biohacking has really brought an awareness to the community about the things that we've had here for a number of years, even before, but now they're looking for it. So again, for me, when I'm selling a program, let's say, of somebody not just coming here for the back pain, but something that they can continually invest in the continued incline of their health and well-being instead of just managing the decline, because that's kind of the model we've all been part of. So I think the timing now of something like this, and chiropractors are the people that I believe we're already the biohacking doctors. We're here to help the body do its best. Well, there's so many great modalities out there now that we can integrate as part of that to really, in 90 days, really turn somebody's whole health situation around. I've seen it, you know, time and time again with people in their 40s, 50s, even 60s. You know, I'm 65, and I have people, you know, 20 years younger than me that don't feel nearly as good as I feel now. But that's because of the lifestyle that I've been living and investing in all these things here. So I think chiropractors in general are the best doctors to potentially get on and embrace the biohacking-ness of chiropractic care with all these other things that are out there now.
What are you finding that people are searching for more today than they were in the past? That's one part of the question. And you kind of alluded to it in terms of like maybe some of the laser therapy stuff, but I'm curious as to, you know, what are people actually like looking for? Because oftentimes I'm sure there's plenty of biohacking or other services that you provide that people just straight up don't even know exist and aren't looking for. I'm curious on that side of it. And also too, what is like the most profitable service that you offer other than obviously adjustments from a business standpoint?
Yeah, so a lot of the things that we have here, we kind of package or bundle together as memberships. And so when you have somebody, let's say, that's doing superhuman protocol, molecular hydrogen, getting adjusted once a week, twice a month, once a month, and build packages around that, the enhancement of stacking all those therapies together is how these things become the business model. And it's all cash based. We stopped taking insurance about probably 12 years ago and started with the cash business model. Now, that being said, I had to really start then looking for modalities for chiropractic treatment that really would help me stand apart from my colleagues that were still taking insurance, you know, doing an adjustment, you know, $35 copayment, whatever it was, because that's still the mentality of most of the patients and the doctors. You know, you got to see 60 people a day, you know, getting $35 copayments and very little from the insurance companies. But when you can build value by getting things like shockwave therapy, class 4 laser, modalities that really do something to help enhance, again, the healing process of the body. Shockwave therapy is a great way to unwind the fascial and muscular tension that's responsible for so much of, you know, people's pain musculoskeletally, and, you know, lack of blood flow, lack of mobility in the joints. And so, you know, the tissues become less resilient. You know, pain starts when there's enough inflammation built up from those, you know, compromised, dysfunctional support systems that, you know, we get through compensation. And using something like laser that really speeds up at the cellular level the, you know, the healing of the cellular tissue, getting rid of inflammation, mitigating pain, and actually speeding up the regeneration of new healthy cell tissue. So having things like that, and the insurance companies are way behind. They don't even pay for that stuff yet. And, you know, they're still paying for ultrasound and, you know, electric stim, but I was using that stuff in the 80s. You know, this is 40 years later. There's a lot of great things. So I chose, if I'm going to go and be a cash business, I need to, you know, set myself apart from my colleagues by bringing things and integrating things within treatment that's going to get results faster and build value that way, that people say, you know what, I've been to the $35 copayment guy, 3 or 4 guys, and, you know, I'm still in pain. And I just go to this guy and, you know, 2 visits, not only am I 80% better, but he's got all this other cool stuff here that can help me learn more about my biochemistry, learn more how I can take better care of myself because of, you know, how my genetics are, or knowing how my mitochondrial functioning How can I enhance that? So, it gives them more pieces to their own health puzzle. Now, of course, there are people that are just in pain and they just want to get out of pain, and then they're gone. But there are more and more people that want to invest in that incline of their health, and I find them to be more, in the late 40s, early 50s, certainly in their 60s, and I've even had people in their 70s that wanted to finally turn things around, and being able to be a resource to them by having all these things here has been good. And again, 10 years ago, this never would have worked. Nobody was thinking that way. But more and more people are finding that now today. Go
As
ahead.
a cash-based practice, has this and you're saying that basically you do more of what sounds like a package type situation, so there's adjustment and probably other services and modalities that you offer as well. What has that changed your time with patients and also your volume in terms of are you then now seeing patients for longer and having higher prices, or is it still like is it still high volume? You just I don't know.
No, I definitely cut the volume down because I do spend more time with people to build that value and, charge membership fees. So, I try to keep everybody, billed automatically at the beginning of the month. So, when all the bills hit, that's when all the membership fees are, the recurring payments are coming in too.
Oh, you have
So
a
on the business
membership
side,
model.
yes, exactly. Um,
Oh.
so, I mean, that's really the way to go when you have a cash-based practice, especially with multiple modalities, because then people can, let's say one month they'll be doing red light as an adjunct to chiropractic, but on some months, let's say they do exosome therapy, which is obviously a much big ticket item from a cash standpoint. But by having memberships, they can have a discount on that. And so, these are ways to keep a cash flow going consistently and have people coming in on a regular basis, utilizing the technology. And of course, if they're not getting adjusted, but something happens, of course, they're going to come and see me because they're already coming in. And all the things kind of packaged together and stacked that way are just giving people levels of wellness and well-being and performance, better sleep, no brain fog, all those kinds of things that you can't get from just doing an adjustment. So that's where I think people are willing to do this, and it usually takes somebody that's lost some quality of life to be invested in themselves to try to gain it back.
What is it like a tiered system and then they get more access to more services as they go up the tier, or is it just like a flat rate and then maybe there's like add-ons for different services, or how does it work?
It's tiered, but if somebody just wanted to come in for superhuman protocol, that's a standard, monthly price. That's recurring billing.
Okay.
But if they wanted to like add on molecular hydrogen during that process, that's an addition to that normal price. It's a few $100s more. That's recurrently billed. And if at some point they say, hey, my shoulder's been bothering me, I want to get treatment, then they'll get a treatment. But if they want to get a package of, let's say, shockwave laser therapies, 4 visits, 8 visits, 10, 12, that'll give them an opportunity to get a package and use that. And if they feel asymptomatic in 2 visits, they still have another, maybe 8 or 10 visits left that they can use later on. So we have it that way. And then we're working on something where we're doing it a little bit more like you're talking about, where they have like a base membership and it just entitles them to either a few touchless services. That means not me, things like red light and some of the other things that don't require my time and effort, that either my staff can do or they can really be doing on their own. So they're entitled to those. So if, let's say, one month they want to do compression therapy and they have this certain level of membership, they can pop that in there anytime they want during that month. And if in another month they want a vitamin B12 shot, we have a nurse practitioner here, or an IV vitamin drip. Those are other things that we're able to kind of put in there and just discount if they're on the membership. So that's something that we're kind of putting together right now. But a lot of the other things that we're talking about here are already membership based. They're paying monthly for them. They're coming in to utilize it, and they might use me a la carte for a service, or they might buy a package of treatments with me.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the membership model. I'm curious as to how receptive patients have been to it. I was actually just recently at a conference. It's called the Remarkable Practice, and they talk about business and chiropractic and all that fun stuff. But that was one of the things that one of the presenters was talking about is just seeing how a lot more practices are shifting over to a membership style model. I mean, for a whole host of reasons, right? It makes projecting future growth easier. It probably decreases churn. But I'm curious as to when, I mean, I'm sure you probably didn't do this all along. Has it been receptive? Like, how did you get people on board with it? What were patients saying when you decided to go with this?
The people that are regulars, that are either regular users of some of the modalities that we're talking about, they're receptive because for them, they're able to, they know they're going to be coming. They keep consistent, and it also keeps them accountable in a certain way to continue their wellness journey. It keeps them engaged in it. They've paid for it. They want to make sure they take advantage of it, and they know they're the beneficiary of the benefits because they're going to be feeling better if they do. It's easy to be on a once a month just adjustment and fall off of that at some point. But when they have these other things that they're engaged in too, they absolutely can get an enhancement of how they feel, function, sleep, clear headed. And that's worth a lot to certain people. So the people that see the value in that and want to continue this, they're the ones to do that. But other people, like I said earlier, like they just want to get out of back pain. They'll see me for, 2 or 3 visits. They feel good, and they'll come see me in 6 months when they get hurt again. So it's, there's still those people. My goal eventually is to not be the back pain guy and to be more of the bio optimizer, give people the things and tools they need. Some of it's testing and supplements and some other things, but other things are things that they can come in here and utilize on a weekly basis to just keep enhancing themselves. And I find the guys that, again, in the 50s to the 70s are the ones that are really doing that, because those are the ones, especially the high earners, that have been working their tails off for the last 35, 40 years, making money, getting the house, getting the car, getting the wife and the kids, but they don't feel that great. And now they want to get to the point where they have the disposable income and they need guidance. They can't just listen to one podcast and take methylene blue because that they were told, and listen to another podcast. They need somebody that's understanding how to get to the foundational roots of their health issues and be able to guide them through it. And to them, that's a great value. So eventually, those are the kinds of people that I want to really see and maximize the use of this practice in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I can safely tell you we see a lot of that type of person here in Austin where they've built some business or they're a high earner or high achiever, whatever it is, and then they basically try to buy their health back
Yeah.
via bio optimizing and whatever, which I mean, there's worse things you could blow your money on, but
All right.
but so what are people's like favorite service? Like what is the thing that you offer that people just like day in and day out are like, man, I love this. Is it the cryo? Is it the magnetism? Like, what is it? What is it that people love?
Yeah. Superhuman protocol is extremely impactful on the way somebody feels, performs, functions, sleeps, because so many people are walking around under oxygenated, meaning they're just not getting enough oxygen. And if you're not getting enough oxygen, you're not making enough ATP at the cell level. And if you're not making enough ATP, then things in general are just not functioning, because, the one common denominator in every disease that we've identified is over 35,000 diseases that we have a name for, depending on the tissue and the organ system. The one common denominator across the board is that there's a reduction of energy production at the cellular level. Now, that says to me, we have one issue with 35,000 plus symptoms, depending on the tissue and the organ system. So by drilling down and optimizing that, it's the key to a lot of what goes wrong in people that are even like things like anxiety, depression, which a lot of things are rooted in inflammation anyway. And when you're optimizing the amount of oxygen your body gets and the amount of oxygen you're getting into the mitochondria to make energy, that's getting you to function at, that top level. Calling pathology are really just the drop down effect of that. So superhuman protocol is one of those things that within a number of weeks, people start feeling like, 30 years younger, if they're in their 50s, let's say 60s, because of what that offers at the cell level. And those, I think that's amongst the most popular and favorite, where somebody says, you know what, I feel like I got 12 cylinders and for the last 40 years, I've been only firing 4 of them. And now I feel like I'm firing all 12. And that's a good description, because it really is like that. So I would say that's the number one. People love red light therapy as a standalone. But the ones that are doing the PEMF and the exercise with oxygen first and then go on a red light, game changer.
Okay. So that's the stack, is those three you just named right there?
Pulse electromagnetic field, exercise with oxygen therapy, and then red light, near infrared. And the exercise with oxygen is involving exercise. We happen to use a Bowflex stepper. It used to be an assault bike, but we got a stepper because I was doing it. I do it every day, and sitting on that assault bike every day was starting to irritate me. So I got a stepper instead. And we're breathing in 98% oxygen purity during that process. We only breathe in about 21% in room air or our atmosphere. And so the compressors in the EWAT system condense that into 98% pure oxygen. So there's a big difference when you're exercising, especially sprints, and you're filling back that oxygen debt you create with that sprint with 98% oxygen. You don't even need 98%, 60, 80% is enough, but the compressors make it at 98% like a hyperbaric oxygen chamber. So the amount of tissue flooding you get with all that oxygen into your serum, into the red blood cells, and then of course into the cells when you get into the red light, because it drives that oxygen into the mitochondria to make ATP. I mean, that is extremely impactful, and that's why even one session you'll notice a difference.
What for the doctor who's not sure of even like where to start with adding a service, like what's your advice? Like what's the first thing you added, I guess, when you started
Yeah,
doing this?
for me, and I think I said this earlier, everything that I offered here, I did myself first. I've tried things that never made it into my office. I just didn't feel that it was impactful enough on my life. But the things that I did that were impactful, I brought in and I used them all the time. And so for me, making it part of my lifestyle and seeing the benefit for me is an easy story to tell to somebody, because I'm like just being a testimonial for this in my lifestyle. And, I've had a lot of injuries at a young age. And I could easily, with the amount of herniated discs I'm walking around with and spinal stenosis and arthritis, have tons of pain, but I don't have any. And I'm strong. I work out 6 days a week. My work is is very manual. I'm picking people up. I'm maneuvering. I'm on my feet all day. I even wear a 10-pound ion vest, which incidentally I lost two and a half belt loops in the last 4 months by just wearing this for 8-10 hours a day, just being on my feet. I've tricked my brain into thinking that I'm actually 10 pounds more. So it had to upgrade my metabolic rate, upgrade the foundational strength in my ankles, my hips, my low back. So
Wait, what is that thing
yeah,
made out of?
easy.
What did you call it? Ionic?
It's an ion vest, AION.
Is that a
I
brand?
met the folks that make it. It's also compressive, so it has compression. It helps your posture. It retains heat, and it's full. It's full length, and it's completely evenly distribution of all that weight. So a lot of weighted vests are kind of top heavy.
Mhm.
But this isn't the kind of thing that causes my traps to tighten up or anything like that. It hugs me, and it really feels like it's part of my body, and my brain thinks it is, because I didn't even know I had one belt loop to lose. Apparently I had 2.5. So it was the easiest hack I had, to just put this on and wear it during my day. So
When you tell a patient that you want to do more than just adjustments and that there's more to their health, are they resistant to it? Like how do people respond when you start talking about all this other stuff?
yeah, so great question. So I find again the people, like we talked about earlier, that have lost a certain quality of living, and as a result of that, they need to do something that is impactful beyond just, let's say, getting them out of back pain or shoulder pain. And they want to feel better. They want to like sleep better. They want to have more energy. For some guys, as you get into middle age, some guys, they start experiencing lower sexual function or things like that. And the fact is that having more muscle, having nutrients that we lack, and it's measured when you're lacking them, won't let your body function. So I always let people know. I said, this is what you came in for, but this is also available to you. And I'll many times show them some of my own records, my reports on me, what I learned from it, and how it can help, how it impacted my health, and how knowing that about themselves can give them a better position in their driver's seat of their own body to be in more control. Because most of us have been taught, you kind of live your life, blah, blah, blah. And then if something breaks, you go to your doctor and they're going to fix it. But we know that's not going to happen. But when people know more about how their body functions and know what their needs are, they can implement that and structure it within their lifestyle. So I'm finding that, like I said, the people that have lost some quality of life, either over time or recently, there's a lot of people that are, suffering still long cold COVID symptoms or got the vaccine and haven't felt the same since. So those are the people that are willing to go beyond and they want to invest in themselves. They want to get to do something that clearly is going to make them feel better. And they believe me because, I share a lot of my history and where I came from, my injuries and things like that. But being 65, being strong, energetic, having a great quality of energetic existence throughout my day and, sleeping great, thinking clearly, a lot of things that, I don't take for granted because I see people all the time that they're not existing that way. So I know I have to live this in order to be able to, show them that I can be their resource for this kind of thing. I had a guy drive up yesterday from Miami. He drove like an hour and a half to get to see me because he had met me through somebody, and he's in, he's mid 50s, and he feels like he's falling apart. He needs a restart, but he doesn't know what to do. So, it's a motivated person, and not everybody's going to be like that, but they exist. And those are the people I'm really going to try to, market to more specifically. And here's another thing, just to kind of put it out there. There's a lot of high performing executives in some of the local companies. There might be 100 employees, let's say. And, I'll go to a CEO and I'll say, and I happen, one of the CEO of a major corporation is a patient of mine. So I discussed this with him. I say, what is it worth to you to have your top performing guys leave you and trying to replace them? How much does that cost you? And how about if the top performing guys are only performing at 70% capacity because their health and lifestyle is not what it could be? So, how much is that worth? Is that worth a few $100,000 a year, a month? What is that like? So I have a program where I'll say, look, for the next 3 months, give this people to me, bring them here. We'll test them. We'll put them on a program. And in 90 days from now, we'll retest them, and you're going to have a whole new person. Maybe it's going to cost you $8,000, but you just earned another $250,000 because of their performance enhancement at their job. So again, we're talking about dollars and cents. That's going to be a motivated person to make that happen. So that's another thing that we're kind of focused on. We've put something together, and I'm trying to use my connections to some of these people. Like I said, I have a CEO of a very high-end company that's well known and knows a lot of CEOs. So I think that's going to be a really good avenue just to pick up a few guys from each of these places. You don't need a lot if you're giving them the right stuff and create these overall programs that are really going to be life-changing for people.
Yeah. Yeah. On that note, I know your number one source of new patients is referrals. I'm curious as to what does that system actually look like? Is there a structure to it? Is it organic? Like, how do you facilitate something that actually drives more referrals?
So the more driven referrals are not just coming from patients that have been here, they're coming from community partners. I've created relationships with a lot of the small businesses in the community that we cross promote with them. So in other words, we'll have patients that might be interested in some of the services that they offer. And so we'll partner with them. And I've even done it with places that even have some of the same services that we do, but we focus on promoting the things that they don't have that we do, and vice versa. So instead of seeing them as competitors, I see them as colleagues and referral sources. I mean, one of my best referral sources is from Restore Hyper Wellness, which is a recovery place. They have cryotherapy, they have red light therapy, they have vitamin drips, but they don't have chiropractic. They don't have the superhuman protocol. And they have some things that we don't have here. So I'll send my patients there. So a lot of that comes from that cross promotion in the community. And one of the things that we haven't done yet, but we're working on, is getting a couple of small businesses like ourselves put on like not a webinar or a seminar, more of like a workshop to a local group at a place where we might bring in some food, and then they could learn about certain topics that they might be very interested in. Let's say what red light therapy or molecular hydrogen, or a fitness boutique that has a very unique approach to fitness. um, or something like that, because there's a lot of groups around here that that meet. Of course, there's um, the Chamber of Commerce, but there's also like the holistic wellness network, and people in this go to those kinds of things. So there's organized places where you go and network with people, and you're able to share what's unique about yourself. And so that's also another great source of referrals, because a lot of the people that would be inclined to see me might be inclined to see some of my colleagues in the community with their businesses, and vice versa. And we do some Facebook ads too. We drive people, we'll choose like red light therapy, and we'll offer them a first time, look at it. And many times those people have turned into regular customers, regular red light customers, superhuman protocols, exosome users. So that's another source. So those are like the main sources of our referrals.
Do you happen to know Jim Donnelly?
I know the name. I'm
So,
trying to think. Give me a little context.
yeah, so you said the Restore. So he's a co-founder of Restore. He's a friend of mine here in Austin. So
Okay.
he
Okay. So
co-founded that.
I have a local, franchise owner. They own like 3 locations,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
they're
yeah.
5 minutes away.
Yeah, so it's funny to hear you say that. His newest venture right now is actually another similar kind of biohacking type thing. It's called Humanot Health, but it's a similar concept of like the high earner that wants to optimize their health type situation. But it's funny you
Mhm.
say that. So Jim's a good dude. Um, but so you alluded to a few of them. So you said referrals, being connected with the local community chambers, things of that nature. You said the meta ads type stuff. Has the meta ads been fruitful for you? Is that something that's worked well, or?
Yeah. Once you find the right ad, and you have to do some testing. But we've been doing it for, I think this summer will be 3 years, and it's actually been working better now than in the beginning, because when we started 3 years ago, there was still a lot of lack of knowledge about what red light therapy was. But in the last 3 years, a lot of information about it has come out again through podcasts, and there's even more, like when we go to a chiropractic conventions, there's people that represent those companies at our trade show, and so even for us as chiropractors, we're getting exposed to a lot of these new modalities. And fortunately, Florida Chiropractic Association has really started to move towards these biohacking modalities for the first time in this last year. In fact, Gary Brecka came and presented to us, um, which was great, because that really showed me that they were really starting to like come up. Because just talking about the usual clinical stuff that they have for years and years and years of personal injury and all that, that's the past. We need to take our post as the biohacking physicians. That's what's going to set us apart, because there's a new healthcare system that's emerging out of this. And I think 100% we as chiropractors can be at the forefront, but we have to be able to offer that. And again, getting back to the original premise here, that's way more than just a spinal adjustment.
Yeah. So as somebody who obviously is hacking their physical health, I'm curious about the technical hacking you're doing, and what I'm referring to is AI. How have you been able to use AI in your practice? Because this is just such a common topic for me, is like everyone knows that it can be an incredibly effective tool, but there's so few people that are actually finding effective ways to use it. I'm curious as to like what you found to be useful.
Yeah, so we're in the process of still implementing it. One of the things that happens when, especially when you have multiple services, is a big learning curve for the AI. They have to learn all the types of responses that they'll be responsible for depending on the questions coming in. So ours is going to answer our phones when we're 24/7, unless my girl is answering the phone. It's going to also handle leads. When somebody sees one of our ads online and they put their information in, if they do not book immediately to come in, they're going to get an SMS text that's going to be interactive with them, and a phone call from a conversational AI that's going to be completely schooled as to what's being offered, and to be able to respond to questions. And so that's something that, my opinion, and I'm sure you agree, like this is the future. You have to get on it, because at a certain point, if you don't, you're going to kind of get left behind. And so we're doing that to number one, not miss phone calls. Number two, be able to optimize the leads that we do generate, because if somebody's a lead and they don't book, that can just become a lost lead, but you paid for that lead. So this at least gives you somebody, and you don't need a virtual assistant. You don't need, a call center. you have this AI that can be doing this with 20 people all at once, and so that's the beauty of that it can handle so much more than an individual person can, and it's fairly inexpensive when you think about what it can do and what it would cost to do that, with real people. So I think it's extremely important for communication and messaging. And then, of course, within our own system, so in our database, we set out everything from like new service announcements to specials we might be running. And so the AI system can be trained to, keep those communications going too, newsletters and that kind of thing. So I think it's very important because it just expands on your ability to communicate with your database and people that are interested in what you're doing, beyond what we as people can do, and it's running 24/7.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've said this in length is like if you're not using AI in your business and in your life, you are falling behind. There's no question. I don't know if you saw this, but actually just recently, a guy just built the first ever $1 billion one person business. And the only way that that was possible was because of AI. Like
That's right.
there's no question that you
There'll
need to
be
be
more of
using it.
those popping up. I'm certain of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as the tools continue to get better every single day, and to the person listening and or watching that are not using it on a day-to-day basis, you are for sure falling behind. It'd be the equivalent of just like back in the internet days of just like not using Google and the internet. It's like you are falling behind, no question. But so is the main tool you're using Go High Level, or are there other tools incorporated into this process and these workflows that maybe I should know about?
So we had initially, but GoHighLevel is so robust that everything can to go through that. The only thing that we still have separate, because we haven't figured out the way to use our processor through that, because the GoHighLevel processors are using things like Stripe or some of the other ones that are
Mm.
charging 3.5%. My processor, our fees are usually between 1.8 and 2.4%. So they haven't gotten to the point where it's compatible. So that's the only thing that's separate, but we can send out invoices from it. So I think the day is coming when that last piece is going to be integrated, because it's able to do everything else, everything from appointment setting. In fact, with the AI, if you call our office when the AI bot's on, they'll have a conversation with you. Her name's Sarah, and she'll have a conversation with you. She'll ask you about why you're calling, what your issue is. If you're a new patient, she'll tell you some of the things about our cash-based practice, what that looks like. If you're an existing patient, she'll just help you get scheduled, ask you what your problem is. It's shoulder pain. Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, where's that? Okay, and she can get you on the schedule. I mean, you could say, hey, it's Corey. I got my shoulder issue. Here's my number, my email address. She'll take that information. She'll repeat it back to you word for word. And then you'll get a text notification that you're now on the schedule for the appointment you guys just agreed upon. I mean, it's crazy how conversational it is. It does sound like you're talking to a real person.
Yeah. Yeah, I was resistant to Go High Level for a long time, but now basically like me and all my clients are on it at this point because like
Yeah, it's
the tool.
gotten so much better, and they
Yeah.
keep upgrading, which I like that.
Yeah, 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 for sure. I totally agree. I got some quick fire questions for you, kind of like a little rapid fire round here for you. So the first one is, what's one thing about your marketing that you would change tomorrow if you could?
I think I would be more focused on the demographic I'm really trying to target. I want to be very deliberate about who I want to walk in here. I want the people we talked about earlier. So my marketing would now be geared, and we're working. We've rebranded to do that for that person. As an example, one of the catchphrases on one of the ads is, "Are you still trying to fire up your current body with a 1980 battery?" And just the idea of somebody now that might have been in their teens or their 20s in the 1980s, but they're not functioning that way. Well, we have ways to do that. So we have, but those types of phrasings and that's the person we're looking for. So the language is changed, because that's the one thing that we weren't getting in our old way of marketing. So now we're being very deliberate about who that avatar is, and it's me, except I'm doing all the things that we're trying to get them to do. So I represent that avatar after I've engaged in and invested in these things. But we're looking for somebody that wants to feel the way I do, and that's the person we're looking for. So that's what's changed.
Yeah, man. Sounds like you should include more videos and photos of you in there if you're the avatar. I mean, but that's
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I think that, but sometimes, listen, I don't need to be the guy. Whatever gets the results, I don't care. If it's me,
sure.
then fine, let it be me.
Sure, I get it. What's your best advice to a business owner? What would you say in terms of like if they were just starting out? What would you tell them?
So I think anytime in business, one of the things that and especially in the world that we live in today, how quickly it changes, you have to kind of see where the puck is going and you got to get there first. So you have to really get your finger on the pulse to see, because as things are shifting, and we're talking about AI, we have to find, the real thought leaders on those things. And starting out now, obviously, if I was starting day one today, it would look very different than starting 15 years ago, the things that I know I would have to include. So you really have to kind of think ahead. And I think you can't, even if they're teaching you certain things in school, they might be outdated in terms of being in the in the world out here, because you need to know how to run the business. They don't do a very good job in school about teaching that. So I think knowing really where the puck in business is going and deciding for yourself, who do you want your patients to be? Do you just want to, see 80 people a day and just adjust them? And that's fine if that's what you want. You build a practice around that. But I think you have to figure out really, how do you envision that practice to be your, that you want to do. And you also want to think about, all right, how do I build this thing but not make it about me? Because so much of chiropractic is about the doctor themselves. So when it comes to exit strategy, you need systems and things in place that don't require you being the guy. So there's many ways to do that with some of the instrumentation that's out there, and many things that, as an example, like my assistant could do shockwave therapy on a patient. So even if I'm not going to be here for a day, she could still work on somebody. And so I think you want to try to create as many lanes of service, if you have the opportunity to, that don't require you. And so the more passive or touchless therapies you can offer, especially those that complement themselves, are going to be something that you want to really do. So you can, create that model. And then, I have guys that, have 3 or 4 offices that are working independent of them. Maybe they'll hire a guy to go in there for some of it. But the more things that you could have going on that don't require your time, I think that's the goal.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. I appreciate the sentiment about having an exit strategy. I've had a few conversations about that. If anybody wants to check out previous episodes, one of them actually was with Stu Burnson, who started Cairo One, and I think they expanded to like 160 locations or some crazy number. But yeah, we got pretty deep into figuring out like having a exit strategy, even if you don't ever plan to exit. I mean, even like I take you for an example of you obviously love what you do. And so who knows if you'll ever actually technically exit. It sounds like you want to continue to practice, but
Yeah, I
uh,
want to grow more too. I feel like, this is a new, at 65, I feel like I'm starting a whole new career with this whole new avatar, this biohacking guy. My goal is to not be the back pain guy anymore, but the guy that people are coming to optimize, to bio optimize. That's what I want to do. I want to be the biohacking guy.
yeah, I like it. What's a book or person that kind of like changed your trajectory or kind of got you on that path to doing this biohacking thing?
Um, I think it really started with the concept at 10 years old that somehow I could do something with my body that's going to get my body to be stronger, to work better, to perform better, and that how what I ate was going to affect that. So that really set me off in my personal journey at 10 years old. And of course, you know, being consistent as I have all through the years, and then going into the degree program of chiropractic and learning about biochemistry, physiology. I never realized how much I was going to need to know how the mitochondria function, how that pertinent was going to be today when I was taking prerequisite courses in biology and learning all that stuff. But it's the essential. It's the biggest piece to the puzzle now. So I know so much about ATP production and mitochondrial function, and it's foundational. So I would say, the biggest thing was, I think, when I was 10 years old, that somehow our body is resilient to change in a positive way or a negative way. And that is in our control. And now that we have the ability to measure things about ourselves, and to, have steps to take, action steps to fix things on our own, I think that's really what's been the biggest driver of who and how I am, both in my personal life and what I try to be a resource to other people for. So it wasn't a single book. It was that concept that I learned when I was 10 years old, that we can affect the body.
Yeah. Yeah, I like to think a lot about how every action we take is a vote in a positive or negative direction, right? Like every bite of food, every rep of an exercise, every walk you take, every missed night of sleep, I guess you could say, they all are a vote in a positive or negative direction, whether we like it or not. But
Yeah.
was there anything on this podcast episode that you wished we would have discussed that we didn't take in a chance to, or is there any other topics you wanted to make sure to hit on?
Not really. I mean, I was really trying to just be responsive to what you feel that your audience would find important. I think you asked really good questions, and if you asked me 10 years ago, I probably would have had different answers, and obviously 10 years before that, the answers would be different. But I just think that it's a really good thing for you to do, because I think we as a profession, need a lot of this type stuff from fellow colleagues that are out there doing things, because a lot of people struggle trying to figure out like what's the formula. There's a lot of practice management systems out there. you know some are great, some aren't so great. Do you want to build your practice around decompression? You don't want that to be the model. I mean, to me, that just never drew me in. And some of the other things that are out there, I've just been fortunate that I think, again, my mentality personally, starting from a young age, is what drew me to this whole idea of biohacking and biooptimization. It's finally like caught up, in the communities and the population and the thought processes of people, that this is something that we all need to be doing at some level. And like I said earlier, we as chiropractors, I think we're the best docs to do it.
Yeah. I think it's the blessing and the curse of business is that you could technically do anything you wanted, which also makes it that much more difficult thing to do, because like you can do whatever you want and that makes it really hard. It's kind of like given a blank canvas and it's like, all right, go paint a masterpiece. It's like, what? Okay. So tell people where they can find you, or tell us about Physical Evidence Connect. How can docs get involved? Tell us more.
Yeah, so physicalevidenconnect.com is it takes you to a page in the website where you can put in your information, name, email address, cell phone. There's a drop down menu about certain of the services or that we offer here, but there's also a custom box that you can just ask questions. It comes to me, and then we can make an appointment and have a chat. And I'm happy to do that, especially with colleagues, because I've often had an opportunity to do that because they've been interested in some of the things that we have here. So I have colleagues in different states, or even the same part of the state, same state but different part of the state, that are interested. So I've done that just to try to be a resource for help. So the same way I'm a resource for patients, I like to be resources for my colleagues that are interested in some of the things that I've done successfully, and I'm happy to help.
Awesome. Dr. David, this has been great, man. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you, Corey.